Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Welcome to In the City. Each week we unpack a story that's crucial to the world's financial capitals. I'm Francine Lacqua. Now, London has long prided itself on being a global tech hub, but that reputation is starting to falter. Revolut, for example, is considering a listing in New York, pointing to low valuations and limited liquidity in the UK market. Meanwhile, Wise, the £12 billion money transfer company, is shifting its primary listing to the US. So these developments are flashing warning signs for British lawmakers, but also raising serious questions about London's ambitions as a tech capital.
Welcome to the City of London.
The City of London.
The next station is Bank. Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
The financial heart of the country.
The City.
The City.
Welcome to In the City.
Stand clear of the doors, please.
In this episode, we'll dig into what's behind the shift and why some of the UK's leading fintech firms are turning away from London, while the city keeps pushing this image of itself as a booming tech capital. Well, to help us unpack it all, I'm delighted to be joined by Amy Thomson, Bloomberg's tech team leader for EMEA. Amy, I'm so happy you're here to make sense of all of this.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How's the UK doing? We're in the middle of London Tech Week. Last week, for the first time, we had South by Southwest. You had pretty cool speakers. It generated a little bit of a buzz. But is it attracting money?
I mean, London as a tech hub in Europe is still the biggest. It's still where you should be if you're a startup or a scale-up in Europe. It's where the venture capital money is, where the private equity capital is. So, yes. But as far as tech conferences go, there is the long-standing rivalry between London Tech Week and Viva Tech, which kicks off on Thursday. So I think it'll be interesting to compare the buzz between the two this year.
I moderate a couple of things at South by Southwest, and people are saying, where are you from? Are you from London? Is there a correlation between conferences and attracting money, or is it just because people like to come to London because London has a good infrastructure? And again, it creates a buzz, but there's not necessarily capital being deployed on the back of that.
Oh, that's tricky. I mean, I think the London conferences will have like you said, the big London fintechs are more likely to show up. But for what it's worth, Viva Tech seems to be the buzzier show. I think they had Elon Musk show up last year. Jensen Huang appeared at London Tech Week on Monday, but he's going to be at Viva Tech again on Thursday. And that's where NVIDIA is also having its own meeting on the sidelines. We've got a lot of OpenAI executives going to Viva Tech. So that seems to be drawing more of the international crowd.
Is it a good or a bad thing that Elon Musk doesn't come to London? He's been so vocally against, right, UK regulations, some of the things that the UK has been doing also for hate messages online. I mean, he's a little bit obsessed with the UK.
Yeah, a lot of the online safety legislation that's come out in the UK has made X, for example, pretty vulnerable. But that said, he's no fan of European regulations either. So I'd like to think we're equally in the doghouse when it comes to Elon Musk.
You mentioned the NVIDIA CEO. He's the person at the moment that everybody wants to speak to. He was on stage with Keir Starmer on Monday at London Tech Week. Were we expecting a bit of money being put to projects?
Yeah, we had all sorts of conspiracy theories ahead of Jensen's appearance. Don't think the money was on Skills Up. I think maybe we were hoping for an enormous data center or something like that. But, his interest in the UK is nice. He called us, I think, Goldilocks
circumstance. Between these two ideas that you're rich with great computer scientists, it's a fantastic place for VCs to invest. The ecosystem is really perfect for takeoff.
We've got the companies, we've got the people, we've got the universities, just don't have the compute. And then Keir Starmer announced that the country would be spending an additional £1 billion on compute.
Our ambition that we are determined to be the best state partner for tech entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. That's the bar, that's the ambition that I've set for my government. And so on that front, I can announce today also that we're committing an extra £1 billion worth of funding to scale up our compute power by a factor of 20. Now, you know how important that is.
And I don't know if this is fair, but I couldn't help but think at the moment of the 500 billion that the US was just talking about, or, you know, the UAE saying that it was going to build a 5 gigawatt data center, which could easily be in the tens of billions. And who knows if we'll ever see like those numbers realized, but £1 billion at a moment like this,
cheap.
I think
Let's
we're all
say cheap.
a little deflated.
Is this government really committed to putting tech and AI as a priority?
I mean, it's hard to tell. We were talking a little bit more about how the 1 billion AI pledge sounds so much like the 1 billion semiconductor pledge under the Sunak government, and how that felt very too little too late. And this feels very much the same. So it is a problem of a government that doesn't necessarily have a huge budget for this sort of thing, doesn't have a lot of giant companies that are coming to sort of pledge money to sort of placate a Trump figure, for example, doesn't really have that kind of pull trying to create an ecosystem around some of these companies.
I mean, what makes actually a great center for tech? Because you need the infrastructure, you need the power, you need the programmers. But at the moment, AI is also a lot of money being spent without knowing yet who comes tops, right? So you can't really tell the winner. Will you have a winner takes all in tech? You know, is there a chance that they're based in London, or does it not matter?
I mean, as far as the AI race is concerned, I don't think the companies really care where they're based. They just want to go where they can get the compute. They want to go where they can get the investors. And if that's the US, which it historically is, that's where they'll go, because it does feel like you're going to have a couple of giant tech companies that are going to dominate this race. It'll be Meta and Zuckerberg's new brain trust. It'll be OpenAI and Sam Altman. It'll be a company that can get to a scale where everybody needs to use it and everybody needs to have it as part of its infrastructure. And if that can happen in the US, that's where they're going to go. I think the only people who really care where the headquarters are politicians and journalists. The companies themselves are just going to follow the resources, most likely. And as far as London goes, I think a lot of people would agree with the NVIDIA CEO that we do have amazing universities and amazing talent and really cool companies that start here. But when they get to sort of the scale-up phase, or they're thinking about a listing, or they're ready to get really, really huge, a big tech company buys them, or they move their headquarters to the US. They've listed here. They move their listing to the US just because that's where the investment is.
The US, is it just because they have more liquid capital markets? So is it a problem of the stock exchange and bourses instead of a politician's problem?
Yeah, there's definitely some of that. There was a really interesting story that I was reading in Bloomberg about what happened to the IPO market and how that's affected Europe. After COVID, there was a huge downswing in IPOs all over the world, but particularly lately in Europe. And one of the things we're arguing is that IPOs sort of beget IPOs. You have a lot of high-profile listings that attracts investors, that attracts people who are knowledgeable about your industry, who are willing to take a bigger bet on it, higher valuations, et cetera, et cetera. So if New York is getting all of the big tech listings, that's where all of the investors are going to be paying attention. That's where people are going to be willing to give you a higher valuation for your company.
I mean, we've spoken with chief executives that say, look, we like London, but actually if you're publicly listed, you have a lot more scrutiny on a lot of things that even if you're transparent and you're doing fine, you may not want to put the spotlight on. Regulation, I imagine, is a big concern if you're listed here. Does Trump attract tech IPOs to the US?
I don't know if it's a Trump thing. It's just historically the US has been where you go to list if you're a tech company because that's where the investor base is. I think there is definitely a conversation about whether some companies are going to bother listing at all these days, especially with the IPO market having been so low for so long. There's a lot more private capital at work now. So it's possible. Like OpenAI is massive and they're not public. They haven't needed to go to the public markets. So I think that might be the other side of the argument. I don't really think that the regulations have changed so much under Trump and under the new EU administration that it would sway anybody one way or the other.
If you don't want to go public, you're, either get bought by private equity or you get bought by a big tech company or you're flying solo in private. Do you see a preference from chief executives or does it really depend on the space you operate in?
I think it depends on the space. You've had sort of mid-sized companies tend to get folded into the bigger tech companies. Like we read about Qualcomm buying one of our London-listed tech companies, AlphaWave. They make semiconductor technology that's particularly useful for AI and data centers, which is really hot right now, and Qualcomm's obviously been interested in it. So you have sort of the big tech coming in, swooping in and buying you out. But also there are huge pools of capital. You've got money coming out of the UAE, for example, Saudi funds that are just focused on AI and tech that are worth tens of billions. So, there's money to be had, and you can still keep control of your company and not necessarily do a financial report every quarter.
Who's London's biggest rival for the tech scene? Definitely the US, or is there a European? We talked a lot about VivaTech in Paris. You were telling me also Germany has some really cool startups, but are they big enough or
as far as buzz, I guess if we're talking the US and China are on a different scale, who's on the same playing field as London, I'd say probably France and Germany are doing some really cool things in tech right now. We just put out a list of 25 European startups with Founders Forum that went out earlier this week and saw people from all over Europe, but a lot of the concentration was UK, France, and Germany.
What are you most excited about? Is there a space in tech that you think has been overlooked that is crucial to getting it done?
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting spaces for Europe right now is defense tech. So if you look at a company like Helsing, they're never going to go to the US because part of their selling point is sovereignty. And that's become so important now because of the way the geopolitics are changing in Europe. They're attracting a lot of investment, a lot of interest. Their drones are used in Ukraine. I think they have agreements with the German government. So companies that can help Europe meet its goals of becoming more independent, taking more control over their own defense, I think will be really, really interesting to watch this year.
Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of In the City from Bloomberg. This episode was hosted by me, Francine Lacqua. It was produced by Summer Sadi, Moses Andem, and Tala Mahdi. Brendan Francis Newnham is our executive producer. Special thanks to Amy Thomson. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts.